You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast. This is season number 3. It is episode number 62. The Cubs are running out of time, Crawly. Don't forget to listen. Don't forget to download. Don't forget to subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. Hey, feel free. Leave us a 5-star review of this thing. And Crawly, we're on all the social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram. We're on Facebook. You can email Crawly and I, even disappointed. We're not getting a whole lot of emails, Crawly. We need to get some the fans to email us some questions so we can start doing a little mailbag because we are going to start looking towards the 2025 Cubs season. But they were able to salvage 1 of 3 from the Reds, so didn't get swept. But boy, games 1 and 2 were not great.
And that's what we're saying. Running out of time, we can celebrate and do cartwheels over what happened yesterday. That big offensive performance. But we're now, in the dog days of August. The calendar's turned to August 1st now here, and winning 1 out of 3 isn't going to do it. It just isn't. You need to start putting something together, and we've been waiting and waiting, and just to see how they played against the Reds the entire season. It was just this was a battle for last place, and you lost.
Yep, battle for last place, and you lost, and they're just as not a big surprise considering they're in last place. They've been just really crappy, to put it mildly, against this division overall.
Yeah, they can't win division series. The last one, I believe, was in May. So it's don't really know what to say anymore other than, time's running out. I keep hearing all these things about, we're going to do this and now let's see what happens. And we know we have a good team, but they've not been able to prove it on the field.
Game number 1 had Jameson Taillon on the hill, and his name was in a lot of speculation with the trade deadline, but he did not end up getting moved. But watching the game, Crawly, I don't know if you took it the same way I did, but watching the game, and I'm hoping this is the case, Taillon looked affected. He didn't look completely there, focused mentally.
Yeah, Dustin, we talked about it off the air a little bit about kind of just bizarre that he would make this start. And why the Cubs would put him out there, right? I don't understand the advantage of that, because if he has a bad start, his trade value goes down. If he gets injured, he can't be traded. And so you're kind of crossing your fingers and hoping he's had a good start, but he didn't, right? And so in his last 8 outings prior to the start, he had 7 quality starts. And the one that wasn't, he was only a third of an inning away from being qualified for it before Counsell took him out. But it didn't take long for things to go downhill fast. In the second inning, with a runner at second and 2 outs, Taillon gets to a 2-2 count against Will Benson. He's a 193 hitter. And if you were listening to 670 The Score, Pat had a great call. He's got power, just don't make a mistake. And sure enough, Taillon leaves a curveball middle. Benson crushes it to the right field bleachers to put the Reds up 2-0. Then in the third inning and 2 outs, Spencer Steele would double. We talked about the team not doing the little things, right? Just a lot of dumb mistakes. Steer's on second. Taillon pitches the ball, and Steer attempts a delayed steal. Amaya catches it, kind of looks at the ball. He's not paying attention. Patrick Wisdom's not covering third after the pitches or after the ball is caught, and so nobody's covering third, and so Steer gets third, and you're like, okay, that's just dumb. Now, and that's going to come into play because Taillon's going to throw a wild pitch. You could argue that it was a passed ball, that Amaya should have blocked it. But either way, Steer scores a free run on a delayed steal and a wild pitch. Reds are up 3-0. Just stupid.
Shocking. Another issue with the catching position. Just shocking.
Right. Bottom of the 5th, 2 on. Taillon gives up a 3-run bomb to TJ Friedl. Dustin, TJ Friedl's had 5 home runs this season. 3 of them are against the Cubs. That increased the Reds' lead to 6-0. That would be it for JMO. 4 1/3 innings pitch, gave up 6 runs on 6 hits, 1 walk, 4 Ks, but 2 home runs. And those 2 home runs, I mean, that's those are 5 of your runs right there. And so, one of them was definitely a mistake pitch, the one to Benson. The other one, I don't know. Apparently, TJ Friedl has superpowers against the Cubs. Didn't really matter much because the offense couldn't do jack squat against Carson Spears.
Oh my gosh, what happened after taking 2 out of 3 against the Royals and putting up some crooked numbers? All of a sudden, they forgot how to hit back in Kansas City. Maybe too much barbecue greasiness on their fingers still.
I don't know what it was, but Spayers, we knew he was on a pitch count. He's coming back from injury. He pitches up 5 innings. He gives up only 1 hit, a first inning single to Ian Happ. He also gave up 2 walks and 4 Ks. After Dansby Swanson drew a leadoff walk in the second, he sat down the next 12 Cubs hitters in a row. Bottom of the 7th, reliever Nate Pearson makes his Cubs debut. He was the first trade that Jed Hoyer made during the
boy, did he make a debut, Crawly. Wow, what a debut.
Well, he has a nice 1-2-3 inning in the 7th inning, right? Then he comes back out in the 8th. He strikes out Spencer Spear. Everything's looking good. But then Heimer Candelario, former Cub, homers to make it 7-0. And then on the very next pitch, he drills Tyler Stevenson right in the head. The umpires huddle up. They toss Pearson. No warnings. He's just gone. Craig Counsell obviously is going to come out and argue this. He gets tossed as well. So quite the interesting debut for Pearson.
Wow, who knew that Craig Counsell had a pulse like that, would go out and defend one of his players? Good for Craig. And also, I like that Craig is now dressed back in the uniform. No more sleeveless hoodies, short sleeve hoodies. No, don't get that concept. Short sleeve hoodie. Anyway, that's not the time or the place to get into that. But, the umpire's got to be smarter than that. He wasn't trying to hit him. He made a mistake, and I get it. It's dangerous. It's absolutely dangerous. You kill a guy with a baseball. But he, down 7-0, you're not trying to hit the guy in that situation.
No, not at all. And so, you get to the 9th, Michael Busch hits a solo home run. That prevents the Cubs from being shut out in a 4th game since the All-Star break. The offense only had 3 hits, 2 singles.
Three hits.
2 singles and a homer by Busch. They were 0 for 3 with runners in scoring position. They left 4 men on base. Their 5 through 9 hitters were combined 0 for 15, but we're used to the Cubs offense being bad. We weren't used to JMO struggling. And after the game, the beat writers did ask JMO, hey, was it in your head, the fact about the trade deadline, all that stuff? And he had an interesting answer, Dustin. I want to see your opinion on this one.
Yeah, I'd say there's been a little bit of noise and stuff, and I'm human and I'm aware of it. But at the same time, I still did all my normal work, and when you're out there, it's the last thing you would ever think of when you're between the lines. So, maybe a little extra noise between starts, but when it comes time to get out there and compete, it's just not even a consideration.
Between starts, what has it been like? Even your own situation aside, watching kind of the vision start to piece together, but then not knowing exactly what it's going to look like.
Yeah, it's just an interesting time of year. It's a lot of people texting and talking, and tough time to be on Twitter and see everything. But yeah, it's a time in baseball where teams go out and try to get better or rebuild or whatever. So there's naturally a lot going on. So as a fan of the game, it's exciting to see. And as a guy who can be personally affected by it, it's definitely a little different. But it is what it is.
I was saying in the lead up to going out there to warm up today, was at any point uncertainty that you might not start tonight?
No. And Craig told me yesterday, don't listen to anything you're starting tomorrow. And I went to bed last night knowing I was pitching today.
How reassuring was it to kind of hear that? So that you mentioned it between the starts.
Yeah, it was nice. I was acting as if I was going to start. And then just hearing it, let me go to bed last night knowing all right, I'm waking up tomorrow. Tomorrow's a start day. Go through the normal routine and all that.
I know how much you're feeling.
Dustin, that what piqued my curiosity on that is Craig Counsell told him Sunday night he was starting Monday. So if we're talking about the trade deadline, apparently there was nothing going on Sunday even.
And trade deadline was Tuesday at 5, right?
Right. And so how could he be told by Counsell on Sunday, you're starting?
Well, because at that point he was starting. Craig's not going to lie to him. And maybe nobody really wanted him. We've had this conversation. He's been decent, Crawly. He's been decent. But if you were in a playoff game with a game on a line, you want Jameson Taillon with the ball in his hand? I sure don't. He's on the very fringe of a quality start every time. He doesn't have a lot of easy quality starts. They're quality starts by the definition, but they're not comfortable quality starts.
Yeah, it makes sense. Maybe, but when you think about all the chatter, I mean, there had to have been something going on. Apparently the Cubs not good enough for them. But speaking of trade deadline, game 2, Justin Steele versus Tony Santillan. You're going to say, Crawly, you told us it was going to be Frankie Montas. It was. He got traded to Milwaukee. Another rough start for Justin Steele. He's really struggling in each of the first few innings that he's been in since coming out of the All-Star break. He walks the first batter he faces, Jonathan India, then gets the next 2 outs, gives him a single to Tyler Stevenson, and walks Heimer Candelario to load the bases. And once again, here he comes, TJ Friedl causes the damage, 2-run single to put the Reds up 2-0. Then in the second inning, Steele once again walks the leadoff batter, Noel Marte, who then steals second. Then Santiago Espinal homers to double the Reds' lead to 4-0. Jonathan India would double. Steele would get the next 2 out, but Tyler Stevenson would hit an RBI single to put the Reds up 5-0. Steele would settle down and luckily give manager Craig Counsell 5 innings, but he gave up 5 runs on 6 hits, 4 walks, and 7 Ks. Dustin, 3 of the 5 runs Steele allowed came with 2 outs, and 2 of the runs that came in were a result of leadoff walks.
Right, walks will always kill you, and he just never looked comfortable. He didn't look comfortable in the first start after the All-Star game either. It's like the All-Star game came at a terrible, terrible time for him. And we talked about it on the last podcast, and pat of the back of Crawly. He just seems to struggle against the Reds. The Reds have Justin Steele kind of figured out.
Yep, makes no sense. Doesn't matter what's going on. He just struggles against that team. So the Cubs offense had to go against a bullpen game. Tony Santillan pitched a scoreless inning. Nick Martinez pitched 4 scoreless, giving up 4 hits with 3 Ks. Cubs offense was finally able to get on the board against reliever Lyon Richardson in the 6th. Seiya Suzuki greeted him with a single. Cody Bellinger hit his 10th home run of the season. Welcome back, Cody, to pull the Cubs within 5-2. Yeah. They had a stat up the other day, like Cody Bellinger has the highest OPS of anyone in baseball in the month of July, just in his career. It's unbelievable. Then in the 7th, Dustin, with 2 outs, the Cubs would load the bases. They would score a run on a wild pitch to make 5-3 with the tying run now on second. But new Cub, Isaac Paredes, lined out to end the threat. Ethan Roberts gave up a run in the bottom of the 8th to put the Reds up 6-3, and that would be the final. Cubs offense did a little better in game 2, scoring 3 runs on 7 hits, but were 1 for 9 with runners in scoring position and left 9 men on base. Isaac Paredes was 0 for 4 in his Cubs debut.
And what was the difference in the lineup on Tuesday versus Monday, Crawly?
Yeah, Paredes being in the lineup on Tuesday.
And Bellinger, right? Bellinger and Paredes being in the lineup, okay? You got to have that. And I feel like they let their teammates down. I feel like they let the city down. I feel like they let Cubs organization down. I couldn't believe that Cody – if you activated Cody Bellinger, then why in the world wasn't he DHing on Monday? Was that asked? Because I haven't heard it asked, and I'd love to get that answer. But okay, so now the Cubs, they are 0-2 in this series. They've lost another series to a team in the division. Kyle Hendricks takes the ball last night. That was Wednesday night, and Cubs looking to avoid being swept.
Yep, Kyle Hendricks versus Nick Lodolo. It didn't look good on paper, but that's why we play the games.
Yeah, that's right.
Offense finally decided to wake up. Cubs scored early and often in this one. Nico started the scoring with an RBI double in the 2nd to score Cody Bellinger. Nico scored on a 2-out single by catcher Christian Bethancourt to put the Cubs up 2-0. Top of the 3rd, Ian Happ single, and as Isaac Paredes was hit by a pitch to put runners at 1st and 2nd. Seiya Suzuki would double to increase the Cubs' lead to 4-0. A Cody Bellinger single to put runners at the corners, and then P-Wiz would double to score Bellinger and Suzuki to make it 6-0. But Wisdom was thrown out at 3rd for the first out of the inning. Don't know what he was doing there. That great Cubs base running. Dustin, no lead is safe at the Great American Ballpark. Kyle Hendricks.
No.
Hendricks sat down the first 10 Reds he faced, but he ran into trouble in the 5th, which is seemingly kind of, you got to have someone up in the 5th when Hendricks is pitching. I don't care what's going on. With 2 on, he gave up a 3-run homer to Jake Fraley, and just like that, the Cubs' lead was cut in half, 6-3. Hendo was able to finish the inning, and he would be done after that. 5 innings, gave up 3 runs on 4 hits with 2 walks and 4 Ks. Majority of that damage coming in the fifth. Like I said, after the fourth inning, if Kyle wants to go out and pitch the fifth, fine. I don't want him going any more than that. There should be someone up every time in the fifth inning, period.
Yeah, he should not get a third crack at anybody's lineup. Third time through has definitely been his Achilles heel, if you will, in 2024.
Now, luckily, the Cubs' bats were not done. Top of the sixth, 2 outs. PCA single, steals seconds, and advances to third on a throwing error on catcher Tyler Stevenson. But all that running wasn't necessary as Ian Happ would homer to make it 8-3. Then Isaac Paredes and Seiya Suzuki would hit back-to-back doubles to make it 9-3. PCA would hit a 2-run double in the seventh. Cody Bellinger would hit a 2-run single in the eighth. And the Cubs would win this one 13-4. Dustin, the Cubs had a season-high 17 hits. 17. Every Cubs starter had a hit. The third time that's happened all season. They hit 9 doubles, one shy of their franchise record, with every starter other than Cody Bellinger and catcher Christian Bethancourt hitting one. And Ian Happ's home run was his 88th against an NL Central team, the most in all of baseball since he made his debut in May 13th of 2017. Now, after the game, Dustin, they asked Nico Horner what he thought about their 13-run output and the new look Cubs and all this stuff. And this is, I guess, where I kind of just got frustrated for me last night, even in a victory. Nico talked about how he thought this lineup now looks much better, looks stronger, looks deeper. And I don't disagree with him, but prove it on the field on a consistent basis. You have 2 months and you are falling quickly out of this. You need to turn it around now or else this season is done.
Totally agree, Crawly. Hopefully they're going to save a couple of those hits, a couple of those doubles, and a lot of those runs this weekend when the Cubs start a 4-game series against the hated Cardinals.
You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast. This is episode 62 of season number 3. Don't forget to listen, download, review, and subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. Leave us a 5-star review. You can email us, flythew670gmail.com. And don't forget to watch us on Twitch. That's right. Or the Score YouTube page, 670 The Score YouTube page. All right. We are honored and we are welcoming our guy, Bruce Levine. Check him out on Twitter at MLB Bruce Levine. You hear him a couple times a week, usually with the Mully and Haw show. You also hear him every Saturday with David Haw on the Score in the mornings. Bruce, happy Wednesday to you. Thanks for taking a couple minutes.
We're thrilled. Chester and I are thrilled to be a part of your podcast.
Well, thanks for doing it. All right, we want to talk about the trades. We want to talk about the team. We want to talk about the future. But let's start off. We're going to kind of run through these one by one, get your initial reactions. So the Cubs pick up Nate Peterson for a shortstop and an outfielder, and then Pearson ejected in his very first Cubs appearance.
Yeah, the umpires blew that. I mean, it's typical of a guy hits a home run and then the pitcher throws inside. You're not trying to hit anybody in the head. You just, the ball gets away from you and it's got a bad look. So the umpires, look at each other. They go, what do we do here? I think the best solution to these things not happening ever again, as far as umpires making bad calls, is that like in hockey, when you draw blood, it's automatic that there's, a penalty or a fine. I think in baseball, if you hit a guy in the head, there's an automatic fine regardless of whether it was with intent or not, and you move on from there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That would solve the idea of, hey, the guy hit a home run, the guy threw inside, but too far inside, so we have to throw him out. It had a bad look. The whole thing had a bad look, and it looked like the umpires were protecting themselves in a moment where they just didn't know what to do.
When I look at this trade, though, Bruce, Josh Rivera wasn't going anywhere. The Cubs have, a lot better shortstops in the system. Yohendrick Pinango, he was blocked up there. But Pearson, to me, is a guy that definitely the Cubs are looking for to try to get some more velocity in that bullpen and miss some bats.
Well, they've done a very good job over this year. If you look back at transactions on Major League Baseball, and I encourage you to go to the Cubs page on transactions and go back to April. It'll show all the way April through now of their transactions. There's probably 20 to 25 pitchers that they've signed that they never announce, okay? All of a sudden, they show up in their minor leagues, and you see them in the major leagues at a certain point. They've done a terrific job of finding pitchers with big arms and implementing them throughout the season. And the bullpen has started to look, pretty good. I think from June 29th to July 29th, it was the top ERA bullpen in all of baseball. So from that perspective, I think developing a closer is number one moving forward, and picking up a guy like Pearson can be that guy. Okay, former number one pick by Toronto, many years ago, but a guy that's found his way to being a major league bullpen guy, big arm, good breaking ball. Why not? Develop him. Look who's the closer for the Milwaukee Brewers and where he was 4 years ago.
Yeah, with the Cubs, right? So, when we look at the second trade, you had Christopher Morel, Hunter Biggie, and Ty Johnson to Tampa Bay for Isaac Paredes, another former Cub prospect there. And, of course, Morel hits 2 home runs in his first 2 games. Have you had a chance to talk to Christopher Morel, and how much of an effect do you think that's going to have on the clubhouse?
Well, it has an effect on the clubhouse when you make a trade, but sometimes it has even though you hate to lose a guy like Morel, who's very popular, positive, everybody loves him. Even us curmudgeonly media guys loved Christopher Morel. It has a negative impact, but it also has the impact from Hoyer in the front office of, hey, if you don't get the job done here, we're gonna replace you. If we keep telling you over and over again, how to hit the ball, how we want you to improve, get something going. You can't keep going backwards every year, and for us to keep BSing ourselves into believing you're going to be the next superstar in the game. I thought Morel was going to be the best Cub player this year, just based on experience and the fact that he has 35 to 40 home run power and RBI power, that it's an electric bat with electric bat speed. But you can look at all the statistics, hard hit ratio and all that stuff, and increased walks. The guy just wasn't getting it done, okay? And this is the 3rd year in a row that his numbers started to fade. So I'm all for him moving along. If he's a superstar somewhere else, good for him. But I like the idea that Paredes is going to come in and maybe give you a different look in that lineup. I mean, if you guys looked at that lineup yesterday, for the first time in, I guess, since Bellinger's been hurt, it looked like a major league lineup, right? It looked like a pitcher and a catcher before the game looking at the Cubs lineup would have to go, maybe we don't want to pitch to him. Maybe we don't want to pitch to him. I don't think the Cubs had that for the last 6 weeks or so. It's just, it's been a non-competitive offense.
I think that's a great point, Bruce. Thought the same thing about the lineup. As soon as the trade was made, I thought the Cubs were immediately better on offense than they were the day before, and hopefully on defense as well. Now, last night, it didn't pay off, but again, that's how baseball is. Let's get your thoughts on another guy, and probably the best bullpen piece, consistent bullpen piece, and that was Mark Leiter Jr., who obviously was shipped off to the Yankees for a couple of guys, and he got there right away and paid dividends for the Yankees right away.
Well, he's been outstanding. I always insist, do not look at an ERA for a bullpen guy, because 1 or 2 games of ineffectiveness where you give up 3 or 4 runs skews your ERA for the entire year. If you look at the body of work of Mark Leiter Jr., it's been fantastic. Last year, up until he started to get wear down and get hurt in September. This year, all the way through. Strikeout to walk ratio, the strikeout to at bat ratio is just off the chart. He had made himself into a great relief pitcher. However, at 33, with a history of arm problems and a dominant pitch that is a splitter, how long is that going to last? Okay. So the Yankees felt for the short term here, they're getting a swing and miss guy, especially against a right-hander against left-handers. That was intoxicating for them. And the Cubs were, hey, we don't want to wait for him to get hurt again. We're not really competing for a championship, The obvious message right there was we're going to get more controllable and we're going to get bigger arms, but we don't think we're going to be in the playoffs in 2024.
Now, Jack Neely is one of the guys they got on the return on that, and that seems to be getting a lot of people excited as far as, once again, just another power arm that the Cubs can have in that bullpen.
I agree. Crawly, the one thing that the Cubs have lacked over the last 4 or 5 years as other teams have come on with huge arms in the bullpen to shut down other teams from the seventh inning on. The Cubs have been more of a finesse bullpen team. They haven't been a power arm bullpen team. Even with Alzolay, who was, not quite there. He threw 96, 97, and he certainly had a nice run last year before he got hurt in September. But you need a lot of power arms in your bullpen, and trading for one with Toronto was a great idea. Trading for one with the Yankees, that's a good idea because he could be in your bullpen as early as September or in April, helping you out there. So I agree with that trade. I think they got a nice infielder who's out for the year that they can project toward the major leagues as well. So I think it's a good trade. Good trade for both teams.
Agreed, Bruce. Good trade for both teams. Now, those are the trades that happened. Those are the guys the Cubs shipped out. These are the guys the Cubs got back. What about the guys that we talked a lot about? Even you reported, there were a lot of reports out there, Bruce, that Jameson Taillon was probably exiting Chicago, really wanted to stay. He is staying. What did you hear in the last couple of hours on Tuesday about him potentially moving? Did anything have to do with the bad start on Monday night, why things didn't materialize? And, okay, he's on the team right now. Would they try to trade him in the offseason? Does he have a future here?
Yeah, I mean, look, Jameson Taillon's an excellent pitcher. At his age and his experience level, he's going to help a team out. But again, you have 2 years left. He's on the other side of 30. The ideal time to trade somebody when you're in a down year like Jameson Taillon is now. So, yeah, you can revisit it in the wintertime and say, we got these 2 years of an excellent pitcher to offer you. If you feel that you have enough fortification with the guys like Brown and Wicks coming back from injury, the guy like Horton finally making it through injury 2 years in a row to get to that rotation. If you feel good enough about that, I think he's also potentially a trade person in the wintertime as well. And again, you can't find a better guy, a better teammate, a winning type guy, but you have to be able to project what's best for your team moving forward, and maybe a trade would work out if they get the right people back here. Again, the Taillon thing wasn't hot toward the end. I think that's why he pitched on Monday. I don't think they would have let him pitch if they felt they had anything really hot going, because he had been lights out for the last 2 months. Letting him pitch and then thinking you're going to trade him after a bad outing, it's not a good look. It's not the way to get that third prospect in a deal.
Yeah, that was weird. Another one is Hector Neris, is a guy. How big do you think that contract option for 2025 made him look less appealing for teams?
Well, if you look at the overall numbers of Neris, they're not that good, okay? But, a fearless bullpen guy for a contending team to put in the 7th or 8th inning is really good to have. He's been put in a wrong role for the Chicago Cubs as a closer. He's not a closer. He's a 7th or 8th inning guy. That's why they gave him the $9 million. He was going to be a backup closer. So now potentially he had innings and games finished numbers that would have kicked in an automatic $9 million for next year. I think that was just too much for teams to look at and go, yeah, we'd like to have him now, but we're not interested in shutting him down because he's getting close to $9 million, and we don't think he's worth $9 million next year. So I think it was as simple as that. Again, I think he's a valuable veteran pitcher, but certainly not in the role that the Cubs have had him in this year.
And with Cody Bellinger, obviously, the contract plus injured right before the trade deadline didn't help the situation at all either.
No, and again, the Cubs have too many contracts where the player is in control. Okay, he just happens to be one of them. Happ is another. Suzuki is another. You have Taillon, who has 10 teams he won't be traded to. So, in some ways, that's the nature of baseball. But I think if there was any flaw about the contracts they handed out, it was the complete no trades for guys like Happ and Suzuki, who are good players and who would be sought out by others. But if you have a farm system like the Cubs have, where arguably your best players are outfielders on the way, you already have PCA learning at the big league level. How do you, in the next 2 months, how do you get any of those other guys into your lineup and bench Suzuki or bench Happ because you want young guys to get time in there? It's going to have a bad look. It'll be really tough for even a veteran manager like Counsell to be able to handle a situation like that.
Yeah, that's a great point, Bruce. I was wondering about that, how you rotate some of these guys in. And maybe, unfortunately, you might have to rotate PCA out of there, even though, I'd like to see him bat at the top of the lineup only for the sake of getting 4 hits every day. That would be the only reason why. Let's talk about Taillon, though, really quick, and a guy like Shota Imanaga, who's not going anywhere. Would you start treating them differently moving forward? Pitch counts, 4 innings, light work, no reason to put any extra tread on these guys because, basically the 2024 Cubs season is basically in the books as far as playing meaningful baseball in September or October.
I guess the one thing you'd have to prove to me, Dustin, is by ramping down guys' innings and pitches where it really shows that it's protected a guy from getting hurt. Okay. I don't know if that's the wise thing to do. Obviously, if they get hurt while they're pitching in a season where they're 10 games out in the last month of the year, people are going to say, well, why did you pitch it? Well, they're big league pitchers. That's their job. They're supposed to go out there and do that. I don't think you can protect that. I think in Imanaga's case, it's a little different story because this is his first year from Japan. They pitch once a week. I think they've done a terrific job of managing his innings so far. Maybe you skip him a starter 10 days or so.
Okay.
But we saw that result the first time they skipped him 10 days. It didn't really work out too well.
No, that worked out awfully. Yeah, we talked about that quite a bit too. Bruce, as always, we appreciate it. Just a couple quick more before we let you go.
Yeah, let me say one thing before you ask me a question. I'm going to give you a guy something to look at. We talk about young guys coming up in September, and they should, okay? They might be able to bring them up in late August. But that's going to mean you're going to have to change your roster around, and that means DFAing some of those guys on the roster. So, as much as you like Talkman and you like, some of the other guys, you like Bodie, you like Wisdom.
Patrick Wisdom, yeah.
Yeah, some of these guys are going to have to be DFA'd, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad players or that they're not helpful big league players, but they're really not a part of your future. Okay, so I think the hard moves have to be made in some of those areas to move forward if you're going to get young guys to be eligible on your team to get major league at bats in September.
And I'm just, Bruce, the one last thing I have to say is, when I look at this, you talked about the contracts with the players having the most control. I just don't see how the 2025 team is going to be all that different from what we're seeing at 2024. Maybe catcher, maybe DH, but everybody else, to me, looks like they're sticking around.
Yeah, I think you're right. They're stuck in a lot of areas, and again, I'm not demeaning these players. They're good players, but they don't necessarily fit for your team every year going forward. They're better off helping another team, bringing someone who at another position. Like if you got a really butt kicking top young catcher for Ian Happ or Suzuki if they waive their no trade clause in a combination deal. I'm not saying one for one, but they need a catcher really bad. And Amaya has still not proved that he's an everyday catcher, that he can catch 100, that he can hit in the major leagues. So that's a number one priority. So I'm just giving you an example of, do you go to Happ, do you go to Suzuki and say, will you waive your clauses for no trade if we can move you in the off season? That's a tough conversation to have, because it also plants the seed that this team doesn't want you anymore. I remember what Greg Maddux said to me when Jim Hendry came to him and said, I think it was the Dodgers want to trade for you. Will you go? And he said to me, well, even though I could have blocked a trade, no player wants to stay where they're not wanted anymore. And when they ask you if you'll be traded, they're telling you they don't want you anymore. So he said every time that came up in his career, he said yes, because he didn't want to be at a place where they didn't look at him the same way any longer.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's a frustrating situation, Bruce. We really appreciate you taking some time to break this down for us. We're still just trying to digest it all, and we appreciate your knowledge.
You're listening to Season 3, Episode 62, Cubs Running Out of Time. It's the Fly the W 670 podcast. Don't forget to listen, download, review, subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. Leave Crawly and I a 5-star review. You can also email us, flythew670gmail.com. Don't forget you can watch us on the 670 The Score YouTube page. Our Crawly, so the Cubs were able to avoid a sweep. How much did that help in regards to the standings?
I'm going to be honest, not much here. If we take a look at the standings right here, of course, Milwaukee's in first place, 61-47, followed by their upcoming opponent, the Cardinals, who are 5 games back of the Brewers. Pittsburgh is catching up to the Cardinals, only 1 game behind the Cardinals there. Cincinnati is 9 games back at 52-56, and in last place, the Cubs, 10 games back at 52-58, 6 games under 500. And this is where we're talking about running out of time here. The Cubs now fall to 6.5 games back of that third wild card spot, which is really kind of their wing and a prayer right here. But, just running out of time. Got to get it done.
Running out of time. Got to get it done. Got to try to put something together. But the way they traded, and when you trade away a Mark Leiter Jr., which we're going to talk about in a minute, feels like they're kind of already focusing, Crawly, on the 2025 season. So a little bit of news after the standings before we get to the injury report, the roster moves, the trade deadline. Something that I know you are very passionate about. I am not as passionate about it as I once was. I think I told the story about how I thought I was going to fall over when the Weber Grill sign made it to the left field wall back in the day, and I have a couple of Weber Grills, love Weber Grill, no problem with that, but just thought it was the end of the world. The Toyota sign, thought that was the apocalypse, but there is something that broke today, Crawly, that is gotten under your skin.
Yeah, I'm not happy about it. I knew it would come. This is inevitable, blah, blah, blah. But the Cubs finally got a jersey patch to put on their iconic uniforms. To make matters worse, Dustin, it's the same exact design as the Padres, right? The first team to break our hearts in 1984. Motorola became the official, I didn't even know this was really a thing, jersey patch partner for all home road alternate jerseys, spring train jerseys, and City Connect jerseys. And it will debut tonight against the Cardinals. I will be there, weather permitting. Dansby Swanson is now the official spokesperson, and starting today, there will be a permanent space at Gallagher Way next to the Cubs store called the Motorola Razor Room. And so this will be there. Obviously, they'll kind of it'll have all the, the latest Motorola gadgets. But, right now, I believe the Ryan Sandberg pop-up is still there, and they're going to do one for Kerry Wood and Aramis Ramirez. Dustin, I get what you're saying about you thought the world was going to end. Here's the thing. Every time this happens, they tell me, well, we're just going to do this one thing and that's it. And then we're going to have all this extra money to spend on all these players. You know what? Do me a favor. You think, Dustin, that because of this Motorola money that we're going to get Corbin Burns or Juan Soto? It's not going to happen.
I think this is a great question for you next year, and hopefully I'll be with you, around you when this happens. I think this is when you can ask the Ricketts this very question, or you can ask, Jed and Carter this very question, because I'm the same way. Okay, tell me how much money the Cubs got for them and what that turned into.
Right. And that's just the thing. It's just, and how long until it's going to be, well, we're going to get a second patch because now every team's doing 2 patches. Or now we have this on the hat. This is now becoming NASCAR-esque. And how much is too much? What's next? Are they going to rechange Wrigley Field? Wrigley Field presented by AT&T or something? When does this stop? When does it become enough? I'm just, I'm paying for $15 beers. I'm paying some of the highest ticket prices. And you can't even let me enjoy the jersey. I get it. Apparently time marches on and Crawly's getting left in the dust here, but I just, it's not necessary, whatever. Like I said, if you think this is going to make any big deal, I don't think it is. I really, truly don't think it. There's a lot of other teams that have these jersey patches and I haven't seen some of these teams signing, big, huge deals or changing the payroll or the landscape of anything. It's nothing. It's to me, it's just more money that isn't going to get spent on the team, at least. Now, besides that, once I'm off on the tangent here, we do have some roster moves and injury reports, Dustin, with everything that happened over the trade deadline. We got a lot of things going on here. Trade number 1, the Toronto Blue Jays traded right-handed pitcher Nate Pearson to the Cubs for shortstop Josh Rivera and Yohendrick Pinango. We talked about Pearson ejected in his first game. To make room for Pearson, Jesus Tinoco was DFA'd. He has now been picked up, I believe, by the Rays, who basically gave away their entire team. Trade number 2, that was Christopher Morel, Hunter Biggie, and Ty Johnson to the Tampa Bay Rays for third baseman Isaac Paredes. Morel's spot was taken by Cody Bellinger, who was activated off the IL list on Monday. And then Paredes arrived in Cincinnati on Tuesday, and Miles Mastrobuoni was optioned to Iowa. Trade 3, the Cubs traded Mark Leiter to the New York Yankees for Benjamin Cowles and Jack Neely. You needed another pitcher to the roster, so Ethan Roberts was called up from Iowa to take the place of Leiter. So those were the 3 trades and all the corresponding moves, which was a lot.
Yeah, there was a lot of action going on. Also, a lot of guys didn't get moved, right? We talked about it. Jameson Taillon did not get moved. A couple of the bench guys, the Palatine Pounder did not get moved. None of the other bullpen pieces got moved. So we'll see how this all plays out. We had a great conversation with Bruce Levine about all of this. So we will see how this plays out. The Cubs also won't have Thomas Nido for a while. He's got a bad knee.
Bad knee, it's scoped. He'll be out 4 to 6 weeks. So if you think about that and you add up the time for rehab, chances are his season's done. Good news, Caleb Killian was activated from the 60-day IL and optioned to AAA Iowa, so he can be called up at any time now. And bad news, Adbert Alzolay has not recovered well from his rehab outing with the I-Cubs. He is headed back to Chicago to be evaluated by the Cubs medical team.
And Adbert Alzolay, probably not going to see him either, right?
Right, that's probably fair to say. One team we are going to see, the Cardinals. Dustin, how the heck do the Cardinals pull off some of these things that they do? I mean, they're trying to chase down the Brewers in the NL Central. They fleeced the White Sox. I don't that trade with the Dodgers.
Well, it feels like, as Cub fans, Crawly, it feels like that the White Sox kind of did this on purpose just to mess with us.
Right. The White Sox gave up right-handed pitcher Eric Fetty, outfielder Tommy Pham, and Cash. They got Cash. And they basically just had to give away Tommy Edman, who hasn't played this season, and a kid from the Dominican Republic who's 18 right now. So I don't know how they pull this off. The Cardinals have been mediocre since the All-Star break, so they needed to make some moves. They did take 2 of 3 from the Braves, but then lost 2 of 3 to the Pirates and Nationals. But in the last series, they took 2 out of 3 from the Rangers. They took the final 2 games of the series after the deadline, 8-1 and 10-1. So they're 5-5 in their last 10 games, 27-25 at Busch, and they lead the season series against the Cubs 6-3.
All right, Crawly, time for the tail of the tape.
We take a look at it. We got the batting average. The Cardinals get the edge on that, 247, which is 13th in baseball, and the Cubs are 234, which is 24th. Slug, the Cardinals have the advantage, 388, which is 19th. The Cubs are 378, 24th. Runners in scoring position, the Cardinals are 24th at 237. The Cubs are 28th. They moved up a spot with the 226 runners in scoring position. The Tampa Bay Rays fall to 29th. When we talk about starting pitching, big advantage Cubs, which is why the Cardinals had to get Fetty. Cubs starting pitcher ERA is 385, which is 9th in baseball, while the Cardinals are 438, which is 2nd. I mean, 22nd. Dustin, when you look at this here, I mean, the reliever ERA goes to the Cardinals 361, which is 7th in baseball, to the Cubs 371. Look at the Cubs, Dustin. We were talking them being 24th, 25th. They're now 10th in baseball with that bullpen.
Yeah, what a jump. And that's a credit to the players, obviously, and to Tommy Hotomy and his staff, because, boy, I feel like they've probably moved up 10 spots.
Yeah, they moved up about 15 spots. And so the fielding advantage goes to the Cardinals. They have 17 defensive run save, which is 13th. The Cubs, again, improving. They're at 16th. But, Dustin, when I look at the tail of the tape, I mean, the main thing is batting average. Cardinals 13th, the Cubs 24th. But the slug's not that different. The runners in scoring position's not that different. The starting pitching ERA is way better for the Cubs. The bullpen's not that different. The defensive run saved, they're right within each other within 3-4 spots. But when you look at the standings, you see a big difference between the two teams. And that's a question I would want to ask at CubsCon as well. I mean, why are the Cardinals, who are relatively the same with the Cubs and everything, have such a better record when you look at these numbers and it doesn't look like there's that big of a difference?
Right. That'd be a great question. Let's hope that the Cubs can eat away at the Cardinals, maybe play the spoiler for them, and it will all start hopefully Thursday night, Mother Nature permitting. We've got Shota Imanaga and his 111 strikeouts in 109 innings pitched on the mound for the Northside baseball team.
Yeah, this is a good one. I got tickets for tonight's game. I'm crossing my fingers because I can't make any other games this weekend. Shota Imanaga versus Sonny Gray. Shota 8-2 with a 2.95 ERA versus Sonny Gray, who is 10-6 with a 3.79 ERA and 19 games started, 138 strikeouts and 111 2/3 innings. Shota's pitched against the Cardinals once. Shota pitched against them on June 15th and gave up 1 run in 7th inning. So, Dustin, the key about this game right now for me, how do the Cardinals approach Imanaga, seeing him the second time around?
Yes, very important, right? It's not only important for tonight, but very important for the future.
Right. Because of all the 30 teams all playing each other, you don't play your division opponents as often. And so Shota hasn't faced many teams twice. Everyone's only really seen him once. And I know the Mets saw him twice, and they really jumped on him the second time they saw him. So this whole game, like I said, I really want it to be played. I really want to be there, and I really want my Ian Happ bobblehead.
Yeah, well, I think it's more about you being there is what's more important. I mean, let's put it this way. Shota is going to pitch against the end this year. It's just a question of whether he's going to do that tonight or not.
Yep. Game 2, right-handed pitcher Javier Assad versus right-handed pitcher Eric Fetty. That's a 120 start. Assad 5-3 with a 3.23 ERA. Dustin, he struggled since coming off the IL, but he had his best outing on Sunday against the Royals, going 6 innings and giving up 3 runs on 5 hits. Assad's faced the Cardinals twice. He took the loss on May 26, and on July 13th, he got a no decision, but he only went 2 1/3 innings. So going to really need to do it. But he has good numbers against the Cardinals. Nolan Arenado's 1 for 11. Brandon Donovan 2 for 9. Paul Goldschmidt hit some okay, 3 for 9. But Mason Wynn, the youngsters, only faced him once, but he was 3 for 3. So look out. And now in his Cardinals debut, Eric Fetty, 7-4, 3.11 ERA in 21 games with 108 strikeouts and 121 and 2/3 inning. Dustin, what makes that all the more impressive is he's playing for one of the worst teams in potentially baseball history. So to go 7-4 with that team, I mean, really impressive.
It is very impressive, right? It's very impressive considering where he came from.
Right. He was with the Nationals from about 2017 to 2022. And then last season, he played for the KBO, the Korean League. He's kind of remade himself. So, he's faced the Cubs 3 times and has an ERA of 5.51. But this is a different Eric Fetty than that was on the Nationals. The only Cub that's really had more than a handful of bats against him is Dansby Swanson, who was 8 for 22.
All right, so we're halfway through that one. How about game number 3? It's another afternoon game. It's going to be Saturday. Javier Assad, right, taking the ball?
Game 3 is going to be Jameson Taillon versus Kyle Gibson.
Sorry.
Yep. So that is going to be another 120 start on Saturday. Taillon 7-6 with a 3.35 ERA and 18 games started with 82 strikeouts and 104 2/3 innings pitched. He's obviously been one of the most steady Cub pitchers, but as we talked about, maybe that trade deadline got in his head the last start. So again, how does Taillon rebound in this start against the Cardinals? Something to pay attention to. Kyle Gibson is 7-4 with a 3.97 ERA and 20 games started with 102 strikeouts in 113 1/3 innings pitched. Kyle doesn't have a win since the break, but he has pitched well on 720 against Atlanta. He did pretty well there. And he gave up 1 run in 6 2/3 innings and got a no decision. In his last start against the Nationals, he gave up 2 runs in 5 innings and took the loss.
Well, I got to say, Crawly, I think this is one of, if not the most important starts for Jameson Taillon for the rest of this year, because it's the Cardinals, because at this point it looks like Jameson Taillon is in the Cubs' plans for 2025. So this is an important start.
Well, they could always trade him in the season, but we'll see what happens.
Of course they could, right? Yes.
Now, Kyle Gibson, 7-4 with a 3.97 ERA in 20 games, 102 strikeouts, and 113 innings pitched. So again, we'll see what happens there. But game 4, another important game to watch because of Justin Steele's struggles against the Cardinals.
Game, Crawly, under the lights, right?
Yep, ESPN 610. We've talked about Justin Steele and the struggles he's had since coming out of the break, especially the first 2 or 3 innings. He's got to be able to get over that. And again, this is a national broadcast, which the Cubs always do bad in. So keep your eyes on that. And then Miles Michaelis, he's okay. I'm not too worried about him. The Cubs have seen him plenty, so I think they should be able to have a good game against him.
All right, very good. Let's talk hot and not for a second.
Yep, but if you want to talk about who's hot for the Cubs, Seiya Suzuki, 8 for his last 23 with a home run and 5 RBIs. How about PCA, 6 for 20?
Yeah, PCA, slowly but surely, right? Slowly but surely he's coming along.
Those guys right now are the hottest. As far as the not are concerned, Michael Busch struggling is 3 for his last 19. He does have a home run and 3 RBIs. Yep. Nico Horner a bit, 5 for 27 with no home runs and 4 RBIs.
Yeah, and he's got to hit better with runners in scoring position. There's no doubt about that. How about the not?
That was the not right there. So when we talk about when we talk about the St. Louis Cardinals, like I said earlier, they had a really good last couple games against the Rangers. They heated up offensively. So Michael Ciani is their center fielder. He's 8 for his last 18. Paul Goldschmidt, 8 for 23. We know he loves hitting at Wrigley Field. Pedro Pajes, I'm telling you, they like this kid at catcher. He's 4 for his last 11 with 2 RBIs. As far as the not are concerned, Nolan Arenado, 4 for his last 19 with 1 home run and 3 RBIs. And then Alec Burleson was 4 for his last 24 with 0 home runs and 3 RBIs.
All right, very good, Crawly. The hot and the not there for the Cubs and the Cardinals. Hopefully the Cubs can be hotter. It'll be a nice warm weekend also at Wrigley. Prediction time. 4 games back. I know you hate these, but what are you thinking?
I'm thinking, as I always do with a 4-game series, that you're going to see a split probably, which, again, all you're doing is burning off days on the calendar. I think it's going to be the Cubs will take two, but that's just not going to be good enough.
Yeah, I agree. Not good enough. And, as the podcast is saying, Cubs running out of time, right? They're going to run out of time here. They'll take two. Hopefully they get all 4 in. Hopefully you're going to get your Shota dreams and your bobblehead, and everything will go Crawly's way. That's what I'm hoping for you. All right, Crawly, that's a wrap. Don't forget to listen. Don't forget to download, review, and subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. Follow on socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Email us, flythew670gmail.com, and you can watch us. That's right. Watch Crawly and I do this by subscribing to the 670 The Score YouTube channel. Crawly, Godspeed getting down to Wrigley, and we will talk early next week.
Yep, I'm gonna go down there. I'm gonna get my bobblehead. I know the rain's gonna hold off, and I hope everybody has a fun weekend at Wrigley, continuing to cheer our boys in blue. Go Cubs! Hey guys, it's Crawly. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date with our latest episodes. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Go Cubs!